Selection of mediators. Oftentimes you will hear from partners of your firm or friends that you have litigated with or against who a good mediator is. The qualifications of a mediator are very important. I would say the most important perhaps is the ability to communicate with your own client. Be it an evaluative or facilitative or transformative mediator, it all comes down to how well will that mediator convey a message. I'm presuming that everybody understands the difference between evaluative and facilitative. Is that correct? Yes? Show of hands. Okay. There is an article that I've written that I've included that gives you a brief discussion of that. An evaluative mediator came around during the 80s. An evaluative mediator is one that will actually kind of dance on that line of giving advice. Will make suggestions to you and your client, as well as to the other parties to the litigation, as to values, as to causation, as to the what-ifs, perhaps how courts would view things, how courts will see things. In commercial matters, you will find that evaluative mediators are often called upon and have been often called upon because of the nature of the dispute. A facilitative mediator is one that will work with the parties to the litigation to assist them in doing what those of us who started mediating a long time ago and learned was that we are there to assist the parties to litigation in self-determination. They're the ones that should be deciding how best to resolve this matter. Oftentimes what I'll say in the introduction, and this is just for illustration, is that they're the ones that are most intimate to the dispute, so they're the ones that are best suited to decide how this should be resolved. A facilitative mediator will work with the parties in assisting them in facilitating their own resolution. There's a transformative type of mediator, which is, if you will, the more ethereal mediator, the one that truly wants to balance the negotiating power so that we are dealing with two equals who will then work through the process. Getting back to the beginning of the question, how do you choose that mediator? You may want someone who may be more evaluative because of the nature of the dispute. Oftentimes, if your client may not like the advice you've given, a more evaluative mediator will be that second voice, that neutral voice that's going to help you work with your client to gain a better understanding. The article that I've written goes to what I refer to as amoebic mediation, or an amoebic mediator, amoeba being that protozoan that will change shape and form. There has been an article that was authored, obviously, before me that came out of Singapore, of all places, talking about a mediator that will kind of change hats depending on the party's needs between evaluative and facilitative. Those mediators are good when you have not only the client who doesn't necessarily want to believe you when you say, look, this is only a X $1,000 case, it's not an X $1,000,000 case, but also those where you're going to have continued relationships with that client. Oftentimes, we as litigators, and when I was still actively litigating, although now I do actively litigate family cases, we would be concerned about how long is that client going to stay with us. You know, we don't want this case to disappear too quickly because of whatever remuneration I may otherwise receive or things of that nature. Without thinking, there is always a tail. There was always that client that will come back to you and say, you know, you gave me good advice, we got the case resolved, I have another issue. Most of our clients, certainly again, that are doing more commercial matters, will see, as they say, that repeat client. Satisfaction rates of participants to mediation statistically have shown those that have been through a more facilitative mediation tend to be more satisfied because they've had more buy-in, they've had more participation in that mediation setting, in that conference, as opposed to an evaluative mediation where they've gone, they've sat there, they've heard what you said, and then they've had a mediator who's got tremendous experience, both in terms of representation as well as in valuation, as well as an evaluation of risks and liabilities, who has said, you know, you need to consider X, Y, or Z, and they haven't warmed into that. I would suggest to you that is a consideration you need to make. Those types of answers, or those types of questions, you do get answered by speaking to other attorneys, other litigators. Look to the industry. We've all been members of different organizations. You've heard Jerome mention ACR, the NADN. These are other resources you can go to. Go to your own, if you will, sub-bars, the defense lawyers bar, the plaintiff's bar. Go to your listservs. Throw out questions. I often, when I am called upon to do trainings, will tell people, as much as we are competitors, there are cases, regardless of how many thousand mediations I've done, across a varied number of things, people are not going to warm up to me. You know, I'm the guy that's going to show up with colored socks and a light jacket with hair that probably needs to be cut. There may be people that would be warmed up to somebody such as Dave or Douglas, you know, who have an air of experience, an air of wisdom I will offer you. There will be those that would want a mediator such as Becky, who has not only tremendous experience, with all due respect, she has a feminine touch. You have to realize this is very personal. A mediator is in a very personal, almost the setting of a counselor, of an emotional counselor or a psychological counselor, and you need to be sensitive to that to get the most out of your mediation. Yeah, we can all mediate cases, but each case is peculiar into and unto itself, and that's why I would suggest to you, look around, do those types of investigations, if you will. And remember, we're not here, even though we're attorneys, we're not there to give legal advice. We're there to assist parties in those resolutions. Anyone have any questions at this point?